Blood Time, the podcast that speaks to the bond, the emotion between coach and athlete at the interscholastic and intercollegiate level. Each interview, each segment will reveal that bond and what was learned, how they were transformed, and what each athlete took to the world at large from that transformation. These stories will warm your heart and astound you altogether. Submitted for your approval. Now it is blood time. I want to thank Serve Pro of Beechwood, our newest sponsor, and Jack Coslin, the owner. They serve all of Northeast Ohio, not just Beechwood. They specialize in disaster cleanup that leaves your home or office like new, like it never happened. Flood and water damage, fire, mold, and they say even blood and guts. Not just any Serve Pro. Seek out Serve Pro of Beechwood. That's Serve Pro Beechwood, Shaker Heights, ClevelandHeights.com, 216-464-4498. Operated by a former All-State wrestler from Beechwood, we love Serve Pro of Beechwood. I'd like to welcome my next guest, Dr. Jen Welter, the very first female NFL coach. Dr. Welter, how are you today?
You know, I couldn't be better. How you guys doing?
We're good. Thank you so much for being on Blood Time.
The title, Blood Time, I'm really glad that I'm not currently coaching because, you know, that just sounds like Bounty Gate all over again, right?
Oh, dear God.
You know, I had to bring it in. I mean, I used to play linebacker, so,
Sure.
you know, I mean, we were talking about, like, getting them bloody. I'm like,
Yep.
Does this guy know something about me that maybe I thought was buried in the archives of when I played?
Well, you know, we've been guilty of that back in the day, so we understand. I remember one time, way back when, we had a $5 bounty if we could make one of our opponents scream during a match. So,
Right.
yeah.
You know, I used to say, I'm like, I think every player in the world would say, I want to knock that person out of the game. But, you know, generally be like, but I want them to be like right back up and fine after. It wasn't like I want to do permanent damage. I just, you know, when you knew somebody was a gamer, it's like, it's a compliment to know that you have to worry about them. So
I get you. But,
you know.
but full disclosure, Blood Time is in the sport of wrestling. And so there's an actual thing where, you know, if you get a cut or an opening, you got time to take care of it. But Blood Time in this instance means the bond between the coach and the athlete at that aha moment when they are transformed and they said, you know what, I can do this. So
I love that. You know, rugby, you can have a blood sub. It's the same, but
right.
I would absolutely say, you know, I always tell people like there's a heartbeat and a bond between athletes and coaches, and if you know that it's founded in love and trust, like I would run through a wall for you.
Right.
But if I don't trust you, then I have to think about what you're telling me to do, and I'm not going to play as fast or as furious. So I always say that one of the biggest things that a lot of people really do, I think maybe underestimate or miss, is the power of the human connection in sports. Yes, I want you to be a gladiator, but that doesn't mean I want you to go out there with no soul.
Right.
You play a lot harder for the love of somebody than you do the hate for someone else. It's a much fiercer, valuable commodity if I know that, you know, anybody who knows me, we used to play back in the day.
Sure.
I'll give you a story.
Yep.
One of my favorite teammates, and she was a blood back in the day, actually, Alberta Fitcher-Bryson.
Wow.
One of the best to ever play the game.
Sure.
We played together. We were 1 and 2 on kickoff. And we were always, you know, we called ourselves the 1-2 punch. Right? You don't hit her, I hit her, you know, we'll both hit her.
Right.
And we used to run our punt returns. Like I was the one, she was the returner, and I was the one coming off the edge to make sure it was kicked. Now it was unofficial generally, but Berta's return would always be opposite the side that I was coming off of.
Okay.
Because the promise I made her, and it wasn't my assigned job,
right,
is I will always be there. If
Gotcha.
you need one last block to score, I will get there.
Love it.
You know, my job is already taken care of. I made sure the ball was off. I'm trying to block it, do all that stuff. But that back corner of the end zone, out opposite my job, if you get close,
Yep,
and you got one woman to beat, she's mine. For years, that was like our combo. And I remember this one game,
right.
Berta's coming down the sidelines, and I see it. There's somebody coming across, take her.
Yeah.
I get there, and it was one of those blocks where the whole stadium just goes, ooh, you know, it cracks, right? And the
I love
girl
it.
is depleted, and everybody's staring at her.
Yeah.
And Berta runs into the end zone, and she scores. And this was probably from about 15, 20 yards out.
Right.
She scores, and, you know, Berta used to do a kind of like grinding end zone dance.
Oh, no.
And she goes, and she's like, I look up, and nobody even realized I scored.
Oh, wow.
Because of this epic freaking block from Welter. They're all still looking at this girl.
Yeah.
I'm in the end zone by myself, and nobody even cares.
Oh, wow.
She's like, that changed how I felt about blocking.
Love it.
Because I was like, I'm going to block like that.
Love
But
that.
everybody knew who played with me, like, to find me, and I would always lay out for you.
Right.
Because,
Right.
you know, and here I am, like, you know, I'm not the natural choice to run behind because I'm 5'2", like
Right.
100 and, you know, probably now I'm lighter, maybe like 120, 25 pounds.
Yes.
Like, this is not who you would normally choose for a lead blocker.
No, you
Right.
clearly aren't the Ravens blocking back at 305.
Right.
Exactly.
And yet, what all of my teammates knew
Yeah.
is that I would die for you. Like,
Yep.
I would lay out, I would sacrifice, I would give every bit of my 120,
Right.
which when you play like that is more powerful than your 220.
I love that, and I love this story because blocking is so important in life
It is.
as
So
well.
many people just,
Yep.
and so many people just want the glory.
Yep. Well
You know,
said. Well
They
said.
just want the shine, and yet the beauty of football often comes in the trenches, in the
Mm-hmm.
people that you don't see and don't appreciate. And I tell people, I'm like, that's what the first is.
Sure.
Right? People always talk about a trailblazer.
Yep.
Oh gosh, do you know what? Like, I cringe when you tell me trailblazer.
Right.
I'm like, honey,
Yeah.
do you know what trailblazer means? It means I was going through the woods
Right.
by myself, branches everywhere,
Right.
pushing through. One goes forward, and then it comes back and smacks you in the face, and
Right.
you're like, "Oh, that was really painful.
Yeah.
Here, let me cut that down."
Right.
And you're moving through the forest, and it's so dense and it's so slow, and you're trusting
Right.
that there is somewhere that you're trying to get, and that it's possible on this path that you are, but you are doing that completely set on faith.
Yes.
There is nothing promised because you can't even see the other side.
Right.
You're so deep in, and you're so driven with love and a belief that that you have to get there, that, each one of those branches becomes a part of your journey.
Sure.
And you take it the hard way, and it's ugly, it's messy, it's sweaty, it's definitely not glamorous. And when you get to the other side,
Yes.
a lot of the times people even don't really understand what you did.
Right.
You may be hated for it.
Of course.
There are tons of people who hated
Sure.
the fact that I was like coaching in the NFL. Oh, you crashed the boys club, or
Yep.
oh, she's just there for because they want to say they're inclusive, and
Yeah.
everything. Oh, she never played football. That was actually my favorite. I'm like, but wait,
Sure.
I did.
Yeah.
Know, all of those things. So you get people that they don't know what to do with you. There's not a system set up for you. You
Mhm.
get out, and you're either like the champion of all womankind because you cracked the glass sideline, or you're the person they hate the most.
Sure. Well, they say the pioneer, right, gets the arrows in the back. So the trailblazer, the
100%.
payneer, absolutely, no question.
And it is, a lot of it, is misunderstanding, and then a lot of it is jealousy.
Sure.
And and then the next person gets to go like skippity doo-dah, like through this beautiful trail.
Well,
Or,
and to say that is absolutely true in so many different things in life. And so when you're looking at that pioneer trailblazing path that you started and you created and you went through, what coach, because you talk about love, you talk about why people were in love with Vince Lombardi. There was that love there was a little bit of fear too, but the fear was because they didn't want to disappoint him. Was there a coach like that in your youth, in your formative years, that said to Jen, I believe in you. You can do not only this, but things that we haven't even thought of. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I was a little bit different. I think as an athlete, I was one that was often underestimated.
Sure. Well, at 5'2", 125, you're gonna be looked over. Absolutely.
Yeah, my first sport was tennis, and I had a coach who told me because of my size and my build, I'd never be strong enough to play pro tennis. So
sure. Yep.
I always lovingly say I'd love to see him again and tell him he was right. I played pro football instead.
Exactly. Different story.
But it was a chip on the shoulder that drove me a lot of times that I didn't want to hear that again.
Okay.
And I did have coaches though that did see me as something special. I remember, college rugby was probably very transformative to me. I played rugby for Boston College.
Sure.
And it was the closest I had ever gotten to football, right? Like,
sure.
Okay, well, this is cool. It's like soccer meets football, and they don't wear pads. Like, I'm definitely doing this.
Right.
And, I was strong and headstrong and fearless, definitely a little reckless. And I went out there and I was like, oh, I'm doing this. And, like, before I knew any better, so we had this great coaching dynamic. Our head coach, his name was Ken Daly.
Yes.
He was a rugby legend,
okay.
right off the boat, Ireland, and this intense, wonderful dude. And then we had this crazy coach. Her nickname was Blotto. She had played for the U.S. national team.
Okay.
Probably one of the toughest women I've ever met. And she grabbed me when I was a rookie, and she was like, "Yep, rookie, you're with me. You're going to be a prop." Okay. And all of the vets just kind of went, what? Because props, if you guys aren't rugby people, props are like the linemen in football. Like, they are big.
They got cauliflower ears, Jen.
Right. And,
right?
Well, that's the second rows generally.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, it's the second row. Right.
That's why they tape their ears.
Yes.
But, she grabbed me and she was like, "Yep, this is the one. She's going to be a prop." And everybody's kind of looking at her like she's crazy. And I was like, "All right, what do I have to do?" And they're like, "Oh, rookie, you don't want to do that." Right? Like, and I was like, "No, I kind of do."
I love it.
And I had really strong legs because I'd been working out forever, and I had leverage, and I was fearless. And she was such, she was so awesome. She like really taught great technique. So here I am, and I don't know, like, I didn't realize how much faith that, like, that had showed in her to, like, handpick me. Right. But she was so hard on me, and it was probably the best thing ever because, you don't know it any other way. Right. But I remember, like, going down in a scrum one time and, like, here I am, and I'm going up against her. Okay. And, I was, like, got a good pop, and I'm like, yes. And all of a sudden, like, mwah. Yeah. She kisses me. And I was like, not on the lips, but like on the cheek. Yeah. And it's in the middle of the scrum. Like, we're going after each other, like, rah, and I was like, ah! What was that? Stood up and, like, scrum breaks up and all this stuff. And everybody's like, oh, rookie, she got you. I love it. Right? And they were like, look, all goes in the scrum, right? Sure. Like, you can't, nothing can take you off that focus. And I was like, yep. This is how we're doing it?
Mind games, baby. I love it. Mind games.
Great.
Yep.
And then there was another time, so, Blotto and I are scrumming down, and it's before a game. The lady looks like she is 16 months pregnant. Like, I'm not talking 9 months. Like, this baby is like, like on the verge of exploding. Okay. And she's like, all right, Welter, let's go. Let's get you ready. Let's scrum down. And I'm like, no way. You want me to put my head into your chest and push against you? Like, that baby's coming out now. Like, surely you're kidding. Right? Like,
that's fantastic.
Surely you cannot expect me to, like, be this crazy athlete that I am, because this is, like, years later, right? Like, now I'm, like, the beast, right? Sure. And I'm like, but no way. You're so beyond pregnant. I can't do this. I'll, like, coat the baby.
I love it.
And so I don't go hard. And I swear to you, she put her head through my chest.
Yep.
I could not breathe. I was like,
yeah, yeah.
And she was like, Welter,
yeah.
Don't you ever go soft on anyone. And
right.
I was like,
yeah.
Okay. Okay, how's the baby?
That's right.
Right? But any coaches, like, I look back now, and I think as an athlete, sometimes it's tough.
Yep.
To realize that those people who are tough on you
yes.
are doing it because they see something in you.
Sure.
They're doing it because they know how good they can make you.
Yep.
And I carry that forward and tell my athletes that. I'm like, look, I'm doing you no favor by letting you be less than great.
Yes.
Yep. They don't owe you a spot at the table. They don't owe you a position in the game.
Right.
But when you're good, your game speaks for you.
Yes.
Right? Like, let's let your game be loud. Let's let you be proud about your game, and let's really own that. And and I've had talks with athletes before, because I think sometimes in our mind as coaches, we believe that they know that that's why they're hard on them.
Yes.
And yet we're all human, right?
Sure.
And it's hard to get picked on, especially if you have a bad day and you feel like you can't get it right.
Right.
And I have had talks with athletes of every level, all the way up to the Alliance League, to the NFL, to the very top levels, to the little kids.
Right.
And I'll tell them the same thing, like, I am hard on you because I know how good you can be, and I'm fighting for you to get that opportunity.
Sure.
Right? Like, the best gift I can give you is to make you better.
Yes.
And I think I wish I was better at understanding that as an athlete, because I was a little bit of a knucklehead at times.
Who wasn't?
That's why.
Who wasn't, Jen? Honestly, right?
But maybe that's why I get the knuckleheads now, and I can relate to them. Like, oh
sure.
God, you're just like I was. Oh, poor thing. Right?
Yeah, but you know what? What Blotto gave to you and your crazy Irish coach is love, and they were tough on you because they knew that. You know what? You're going out there and you're in a combat sport. So if I'm not tough on you, guess what happens when you go out there? So I get that, and I get what you're, that message that you're paying it forward, doing today. And so I want to get into the mindset of you walking into an NFL training room, an NFL strategy session, an NFL, practice field. What was that like for you as the first female to do that? And what was the response, and what was the feeling for you personally and also professionally?
I think so many emotions could be captured in any one of those statements, right?
Sure.
Like, I think I remember the first time I went to go to the Cardinals practice facility. I was coaching in indoor football at the time.
Okay.
I had been invited there by Bruce Arians.
Right. Who is the head coach for the Arizona Cardinals, and where was their training facility at this time?
I guess we were in Tempe.
Tempe. Okay. Sure. Okay.
And so, and I mean, I'd been to Arizona once before in my life, right? Like,
right.
And thankfully, this good friend of mine at the time who had played for the Cardinals, Rodney Thomas.
Sure.
When I was in Arizona, like, we were meeting on some business when I got the message that Bruce wanted me to go to training camp, and I was like, oh my goodness! Like,
right.
I'd never even been to an NFL facility, right? Like, I had no context, and I was a little scared.
Okay.
And he just looked at me, and I told him, and he was like, "This is so amazing." He was like, "I'll take you." He was like, I need to go by and visit the Cards anyway. I'll take you. I'll pick you up in the morning, and we'll go over together. I don't want you to have to do that by yourself.
That's cool.
And I just remember being like, "Oh, I love you."
Right.
Like, oh, thank you for being like one of my dudes. And like,
sure.
Thankfully for me, that's something that I've had is, just a really amazing. Like, I've had a lot of big NFL big brothers who kind of have helped me along the way. Like, whether it was when I played or, then moved on into coaching and some of the other stuff, and even in life now, they kind of are, I lovingly say they look out for me like their kid sister.
Sure.
Because they know a lot of, they know rules to the game that I didn't even know were being played, right? Like,
yeah.
And so if they can navigate some of that, like they do for any rookie, and he definitely did that day.
Sure.
And so we got there, and I walk out on the field, and it's like larger than life to me.
Yes.
Right at that time, the closest I had ever been to an NFL sidelines was the nosebleed section.
Okay.
And here I am walking out on this field, and they're an NFL team.
Yes.
And it was like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Like, do I belong here?
Right.
And it's funny how things bring you back. Like, I always say the football field is the place in this world that I learned I could be magic.
Okay.
Right? Like at 5'2", I could play 6'10".
Sure.
There was nothing I couldn't do when I put on the pads and the helmets and the cleats. There was no one I couldn't bring down, nobody I couldn't run down. Like, that was my place.
Right.
And I think when you find the place that you can be magic in this world, it teaches you to find and expect magic in other places too.
Love that.
And that was football. That's why I say, like, I've been married to football a long time now.
I love it.
It's for richer, for poorer,
right,
through sickness and in health, and definitely it felt at times that only death could pull us apart.
Sure.
Like that's been my life, and those familiar things happen, and they tell a story to our brain that we don't even necessarily like consciously process.
Okay.
And I heard the pads hit.
Yes.
Just that pop of the pad.
Sure.
And I just thought, oh yeah, I'm home.
Yeah.
Right. Like this is my place. And yes, the guys are bigger and the stage is bigger, but like this has been, home for me for so long. And I was like, okay,
right.
I'm all right. It's pads popping. Like, I'm good.
Yep.
And then I give a lot of credit to, Bruce Arians.
Sure.
Here he is. He's the head coach of the team. He's the most powerful man out there.
Right.
And as soon as he saw me, like, he walked over and met me. And, in a time when all eyes are on him, he made me feel like the most important person there. And he really just took time to, like, connect and talk to me. And he was so easy and funny. And, and we hit it off. And, I remember him telling me, like, I'll never forget. He was like, Coach, I can only put these pads in, or these guys in full pads for 14 days in the regular season. How the F, and I don't mean football.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to build a team when I can only put these guys in pads 14 days?
I know.
And I just kind of looked at him and I said, well, Coach, maybe you should come get some of my guys from Marina, because I can promise you they haven't been out of pads 14 days. And frankly, I don't think I was out of pads 14 days my whole career.
Exactly.
And he started laughing.
Yeah.
And he just looks at me and he goes, by the way, I effing cuss. I said, good. It's effing football.
That's right.
And he stopped.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he just kind of nodded his head.
Right.
And he got this smile.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, this could work.
Right.
And he's like, Coach, can you stay to the end of practice? I want to talk more, but, all these guys are looking at me and expecting me to work.
Right.
But I'm not done with this.
Gotcha.
And I just, what I realized later is that was a test.
Yes.
Because if the F word, and I don't mean football, would have phased me, then how the F could I have been the first female coach in the NFL?
No question. Yeah, no question.
There were going to be a lot bigger tests than that, and he wanted to see how I would respond.
Yeah, I mean,
I would have been like,
right.
Oh, I'm sorry, Coach. Don't use the F word, right?
Right.
Like, you're done. Right? Like, get out of here. You're done.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't understand that walking in, that what your audience is and what the culture is, then shame on you. And I know that you're way smarter than that. So you knew that, right? Right. And part of that is where the rubber meets the road. Is that's where the bond is, and that's where you see the great teams come together. Is when they understand that entire universe. It's their universe. It's nobody else's. It's their universe. And I think that's...
and there's a language and an understanding that's created.
Right.
And anybody who would be around Coach Arians could tell you that. Like, he used to say he would coach you hard and then hug you harder later.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And you know where you stand.
Sure.
And I respected that about him.
Yes.
The players, that was, to me, that was easy and hard. hard was the perception on the outside and the expectations of the world looking in.
Yep.
Easy was these guys, because I don't care who you are, if you're a competitor and somebody can make you better,
Yes.
they will listen.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
And in fact, these guys were excited.
That's
right?
cool.
Like, they were like, oh man, coach, like, there was such a spirit of overcoming and being the underdog in common.
Yep.
They all knew they had beaten odds by getting there, but they would tell me all the time, they're like, man, coach, we thought it was hard for us to get here. But for you?
Yes. Well,
so,
Jen, I'll tell you what, the greatest teams have the open heart and open mind. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to get the excellence from wherever you can get it, as long as it's coming with love, then you're a fool. And so, and you're talking about coaching, what great coaches really are, they're a rudder and a point of light. And that rudder sometimes, you got to hit the boat a little bit harder than not, or you massage the boat or whatever it is, but you keep them on the light, keep them pointed to the light. And so that's what I think Arians was saying in what he was articulating to you. But I've seen it all over, from all different types of sports. My cousin, Jerry Tarkanian, he was arguably one of the bandits of the NCAA, but when he had that 90 team where they were the national champs and they beat Duke in the semifinals in basketball, he had 4 first-round picks on that team. They came back in 91. They didn't go to the NBA. That's what coaching is all about, because they knew that he had their best interests in mind, and they would run through a wall for them. And nobody could hang with them until Coach K at Duke figured out how to beat him, and he beat him in the finals. And Tark said, I was outcoached. And there's the other, beauty of a coach to say, hey, I learned how to get better by being beaten. Mm-hmm. So I just love all these stories that you're articulating in this short period of time where we've just talked. It's just amazing. So what did you take away from that experience that you are now using today? I know that you're doing a lot of different cool things, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what you're doing today, but also what you took away from that experience into today's world.
I think for any of us, I always lovingly say, I might be a coach, but I'm coachable. I think so much about life is being open to learning. And I use all of it, I think, to a more or less extent. I think one of the ones that I can speak specifically to that might be a little bit unique is, the aspect of women coaching men.
Sure.
For those people who think that men won't listen to female coaches, because that's what the argument was all the time. Yeah. Stop selling the men short.
Right.
Like, that would be my big thing.
Well,
Stop selling them short,
well, Jen,
guys are much better than that.
And Jen, why you wouldn't listen to your mother if she's telling you great stuff? Your sister, your sister. How many sisters have coached their brothers into the woman that they're going to marry? Come on, in hard life decisions. Yeah.
But that's why I say it. Most of the men,
yes,
have been coached by women their whole lives.
Right.
So why would this be any different?
Right.
Stop selling them short.
Well
said. I'm not going to say, they listen because of this, that, and the other. No. Right. Give the guys more credit than that. Like, there's bad apples in every bunch. Look, there are women who won't get coached by women. That is not a gender thing.
Right.
Right? Like, let's do a little better than that, because it's very short-sighted thinking to say that, who you would take instruction from would be male or female, and that would be something that was determined by a sport or an industry.
Sure.
Look, if somebody's not going to listen to a woman, it's because he's a jerk. It's not because he's a man.
Right.
Right? Like, or because she's not qualified or whatever it is. But it doesn't mean that, this is just what it is because of an industry. So one of the things I always say is and for same thing I push back on women on. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, it's not because you're a woman. Like, let's get past that. Let's see where we can get better also as women, because a lot of the times we need to have better conversations.
Sure.
Right? And let's get better at working together. Maybe what you need is different than what a guy needs in that situation, or maybe the guys want to help, but they don't necessarily know how. Or in our current culture, it is so adversarial that it's hard sometimes for guys to even know how to be helpful. Right? I use the example of like, opening the door.
Yeah.
Right? This used to be common courtesy, right? If I'm at the door,
right,
I will hold the door for you because I don't want it to smack you in the face. I
think
that's rude.
Yeah.
I'm not holding the door for you because I think you're physically incapable. Now I will open it for somebody who isn't capable.
Sure.
But me doing it is a just, I don't want the door to smack you in the face.
Right.
And I tell guys the same thing. I'm like, I don't interpret it. Obviously, I'm a strong woman. I don't interpret a guy holding the door for me as an insult of my intelligence or my physicality and my ability to open the door. I think it's just courtesy.
Sure.
And yet we've gotten to a place in our culture that things are often unclear or misinterpreted, or we're just angry about things that, like, we're going to make something where it isn't. And like, as soon as you do that, people's willingness to have a tough conversation or to maybe get awkward in a situation that they don't know what to expect goes out the window, and it's easier to just not have it.
Well, what I love about what I've heard from you in this entire interview, Jen, is there is such self-love coming from you that you're able to absolutely transmit that and transfer that to the people that you coach and the people that are in your lives. And what you're saying is it's self-loathing that is the core of what what you're talking about right now. Because anybody that loves themselves would never feel threatened, never feel insulted if somebody did some act of kindness for them, and wouldn't take it the wrong way. And that's what true coaching is, leading with love and self-love. And I just,
be open to the conversation.
Of course.
Right? Like, just talk about things. My perspective is like, really laugh often.
Yes.
Honestly, like,
right.
Moments are going to be awkward, right? Like, but I give people the benefit of the doubt of like intent.
Okay.
We're all going to say things that are wrong.
Sure.
It's going to come out wrong, but like, I don't think that most people are intending to be difficult.
Right.
So let's give people the benefit of the doubt a little bit. I have what I call a fail safe.
Okay.
Right? Like let's just assume that, there was a good thought somewhere in the brain.
Right.
Unfortunately, by the time it came out of the mouth, something went horribly wrong. Right? We've all done it.
I've had that happen once or twice. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, we've all done it, and the second they come out, we're like, no!
That's
we're
right.
trying to grab those words back.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And in those awkward moments, like, for anybody, you have a choice.
Sure.
Right? Like, you have a choice. You can get mad or you can get clarity.
No doubt.
And generally, my go-to is humor.
Love it.
And, I've been in a whole lot of situations where it could have gotten really bad really quickly.
Sure.
And my go-to statement that really kind of cuts through all that is, dude, you do realize you said that out loud, right?
Right.
Because then everybody who said it, they're like, I know it, and I didn't mean it, and I'm so sorry. No.
Yeah.
We're good.
We're good.
I know what you said. I know what you meant.
Yes.
I'm just going to coach you up real quick on the fact that combination of words should never come out of your mouth ever again. We're in the circle of trust right now.
Right.
We're good.
Right.
But the big bad world outside of here, you'd be in big trouble.
Yes.
So let's just go ahead and not do that again.
Yes. As my beautiful girlfriend, who's a second grade teacher, says, keep that in your speech bubble. Right. Like, let's keep that in your speech bubble.
The good thing about that is, like, for example, like with me being surrounded by guys,
sure,
and them, there is a fear factor that you're gonna cross the line of like, oh gosh, I just did something that's gonna make this woman angry, or that's gonna be interpreted as sexist or whatever.
Sure.
And there are people who have that intent.
Oh, yeah.
When you do something like I did, right, where like, oh, you said that out loud.
Yeah.
What you realize is that, like, if you're not quick to anger, like, there's a whole lot of like relationship that can happen in that. Because when you can laugh together, you can definitely bond together.
No question. You can evolve, and I love
Right.
I
And
love evolution.
I mean,
Yep.
I don't want my football players walking on eggshells around me. Like, that's going to be garbage.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
Like, worried about what you say on everything and, like, this, that, and the other. And guess what? If you do upset me,
Yeah.
I'm not going to make a big deal about it in front of the entire group.
Right.
I'm going to pull you aside and say, hey, like, or what often happens, and I think more guys should know,
Yeah.
because this is something I coach them up on all the time. If you have like one woman in the group,
Yeah.
you know what's out of line.
Of course.
And you can shut it down a whole lot easier than like me having to do it myself.
Right.
And guys taught me that. They're like, no.
Yeah.
They're like, bro, don't say that. That's rude.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. And then I don't have to do it.
No, there's definitely that when the team gets together too. There's that there's that brotherhood, sisterhood, family. We are blood.
Yep.
I mean, we are blood.
Yep.
I mean, that's how I end every practice. We are blood. And I get one of the kids taking us out, and so, having said that, I've had a fantastic time listening to these incredible stories, Jen. You are something. You are something, and I hate to say this, but we got to wrap this up. And I don't want to because I could listen for another at least double this time. But I do want to ask you if you could just leave the audience with one or two takeaways from Jen Welter and Dr. Jen Welter's experiences. What would they be?
The first one is like, if you are going to lead people, you have to know the people that you're leading.
Okay.
So, really get to know the people.
Right.
Because I don't care what your scheme is. I don't care what your plan is. I don't care what your business is. It runs on people.
Right.
And you realize, like, I always say, like, there is more than just a player out there.
Yeah.
For every single one of us, like, there is a real live person who has to execute. And when I know that you know me, love me, care about me,
yes,
and might even just notice or see the look on my eyes that I'm having a bad day and you'll take a second to ask,
right,
that means the world. I may not tell you, but I might. And
I love that.
The fact that you noticed,
yes,
means that you were actually really paying attention to me on a human level.
I love that. Absolutely love that. That is just so poignant.
Especially in an industry when it's so hard all the time, and
Yep.
it is combat or this, that, and the other. Like, the
Right.
humanity really shows.
Sure.
And the humanity will really be a differentiating factor that makes you dig a little bit deeper and go a little harder, because you're not just doing it because it's a job. You're doing it because it is a family.
Right.
So how can you lead what you don't know? And the other thing would be, like, be authentic.
Okay.
Not everybody is going to like you
Yeah.
all the time, no matter what you do.
Right.
I don't care who you are, what you do. Not everybody is going to like you, but the scouting report on you should be relatively consistent.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, if you are the same person
Mm-hmm.
in a day-to-day and how you treat people. Now, that doesn't mean, hey, this person doesn't need you to be a little harder on them, or this person needs a little bit more of a hug. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But who you are and how you operate should be consistent.
Right.
I don't care how many people you ask about me, you'll get relatively the same. Now, their personal opinions on it, they may love me or hate me for it,
Right.
but you'll get relatively consistent.
Sure.
She's very passionate, she's honest, she's maybe loud, I don't know, whatever else it is. Like, people are going to tap you because they know you, and you don't want people to not know where they stand or who they're dealing with, because
Right.
that's when you get punches pulled.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yes.
I remember Terry Glenn, who was a good friend of mine.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately passed away not too long ago, and then his son just passed away, which was really bizarre.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, and
Awful.
TG was a guy who didn't say a lot, but
Right.
everything he said, like, you better pay attention, because he was dropping some real knowledge, right?
Sure.
And he was one of the few people who knew that I was going from coaching indoor to the NFL.
Right.
And he was like, Jen, I've been thinking a lot about you going to the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
and the best advice I can give you is to be 100% authentic. He said, if you are the same person
Right.
that you were here every day with
Yes.
those guys in the NFL,
Yes.
they will absolutely love you. But if
Absolutely.
you're fake
Right.
in any way,
Yep.
they will sense it and they will eat you alive. So at every point when I wasn't sure,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure maybe, what do you do? What do you say? How do you coach? How do you act?
Yeah.
Because there were no other women that I could look at and say, well, maybe that would be a good way to do it, right? Or
Right.
I'm going to do it like her.
Right.
Those were the words that gave me strength, is like, go back to the core of who you are.
Do it like Jen. Do it like
That's right.
Jen, right? Do
That's
it like
right.
Jen. I like that.
And don't compete,
Mhm.
I think a lot of people get this idea of leadership in that it's perfectly found somewhere else. But, I usually said, all I could look at is guys, and I was never going to outman a man at being a man. And frankly, they didn't need another man. They needed me.
Right.
Because if I was there because I was different, and because maybe I could relate to the guys differently because I was a woman, because I was short, or maybe because I had a PhD,
Yes.
then am I not doing it a disservice? Or even the journey, right?
Right.
Am I not doing all of that a disservice if I lose what's me and I try and be something that I'm not?
Yeah, that is brilliant advice. May rest in peace, Terry Glenn. Thank you for that advice. And thank you for listening to him and taking that to heart and then to the team.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And Dr. Jen Welter, the first NFL female coach for the Arizona Cardinals, thanks to Bruce Arians. Thank you for being a guest on Blood Time and telling us
Thanks for having me.
and tell us these wonderful stories and great philosophy. Please continue to pay that forward and to teach others. And don't be a stranger.
Definitely.
So thank you so much. This is Coach CIMORONI for Blood Time. I want to share my thought of the day with you. Iron through fire makes steel. Welcome the fire.